Hello and welcome to the This Works For Me Virtual Summit. I'm your host, Fernpate Watson. I am the Director of the Faculty Development Center at Morris State University. Are you looking for a strategy to help your students complete their research projects? Today's guest, Dr. Debra Ferdinand-James, will provide you with some strategies to do so. Dr. Ferdinand-James, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today.
My pleasure.
Great. So Dr. Ferdinand-James, I'm going to open the floor to you for a moment to tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
I am Debra Ferdinand-James. I am an educational technologist at the School of Education, the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine Campus in Trinidad. The courses I facilitate are teaching with technology, workforce development, and other subjects that I tutor, not full courses. My research interests include academic supporting strategies, research in terms of mixed methods, and also I am very much interested in blended learning as a mode of delivery.
And I know you have a wealth of experience, especially in the area of research, and I'm looking forward to delving into this strategy with you. In fact, the title of your strategy is Using Research E-Clinics to Support Students' Completion of Their Research. Help us understand what impressed you to start using this strategy and how has it worked for you?
As a new faculty at the School of Education, I observed that students were lagging behind a lot of times in submitting their individual chapters. And that went on, year after year. They would ask for extensions on the submission deadline for submitting these research reports, research theses, and so on, which would be around May 31st would be the deadline. And most times, the majority of students would be asking for extensions. So after a while, I contemplated, and I had one particular student in a graduate program who was very much behind. And I thought, maybe it's not just that student. And I approached the program coordinator in which the student was enrolled, the program. And she said, in fact, there are a couple other students in the program who are in the same situation. Mm-hmm. So then I proposed to her conducting some research e-clinics to do these clinics just before, the month before the deadline for the research reports or theses, which would be April. So initially, I approached the students and we polled them and we asked them, if they would be interested in the research clinics and what areas they are having challenges with. And it was amazing. We got a unanimous response. Yes, we want these clinics. Mm-hmm. And the time preferably to do them would be during the Easter break, because our target group would be mostly teachers, and that's when they have the time during the Easter break when they're off to focus on completing the chapters for their research. Once we did that, I then asked the program coordinator to advertise that the clinics would be offered and when they would be offered and the format for offering the clinics. And we got approval to do it from the director, of course. And I actually applied for a staff research grant to bring on an MPhil student as a research assistant to help us with the data collection, actually working in the e-clinics, finding resources online for students who would need to beef up their literature, literature chapter, literature review. Mm-hmm. So we had the librarian train that research assistant in using the online databases at the school library. And we got funding, a small grant, and so we were working as a team to deliver the research e-clinics.
Wow. It sounds almost like a fairy tale. You had this problem, you came up with this solution, and it just worked. How did you even come up with the name eClinic, the concept of eClinic?
Well, in that program, we were dealing actually with students who were in health promotion. So to make it appealing and attractive to the students, I thought they are familiar with the term clinics because that's part of, the health sector delivery. And so we said, well, we will actually act as research doctors and we will offer research e-clinics. And so they were quite impressed and they were quite open to joining the clinic. So that's how we came up with the name, actually.
Wow. So if someone would like to replicate what you did, could you help us understand how were you able to set up the e-clinics? I know you shared a little bit about how you help students to participate in the e-clinic in terms of advertising it. Could you help us understand how you set those clinics up?
Sure. So most universities have learning management systems. And once a course is offered in a semester, that course is given a course shell on the learning management system. And within the learning management system, you have a number of tools. We use the discussion forum tool. So what you would do is go into the course for that area. Our course would have been EDRS 6900, which students would enroll in once they at that point in the program to finish off their research report. And you'd set up the forums, one for each chapter in the research. If it's a thesis, you'd have 5 forums, one for the introduction, one for the literature review, one for the methodology, one for your results, and then one for your discussions and conclusions. And within those forums, then you would have chats or threads for the different sections within the chapter. So you will have a section for the problem statement, the purpose statement, the research questions, and so on.
Wow.
And the research forums or e-clinics, they would be open. Once the clinics start, you would open up all the forums. And students will post up the questions that they have while they're actually writing up the research report. It's very important to have that channel there or that facility there, because sometimes all they need is just a quick answer or a need to find particular information just to close off a chapter and move on. Or sometimes they may just be stuck. And so once you get in with them, this is while they're in the process of writing up the research paper, you will get questions for each section. Sometimes students may have finished their introduction and they're just about to analyze data, which would be, the results section or their methodology section. And they would have questions as to how to go about analyzing, finding a correct method to analyze the data. Or they may have questions on the conclusion section, how they should write up their conclusions. But the idea is to be there to give that support, that academic support to the students while they are writing up in the process of finishing off their chapters for their research. Now, it's very important that you open up the forums and you are there and to give timely responses, because remember, most of these students are lagging behind. So what you want to be able to do is to give them quick responses. You want to be able to link to online resources, which is what our research assistant helped with. When students said that they needed more articles on a particular topic and so on, she would have been able to handle the literature review forum and go in and link them to resources in our online databases. And you would do it for a month. You'd use 1 week for a chapter, because sometimes if you do it just in a week, the time will be too short. If you use, let's say on Monday you started with the introduction and then Tuesday you'd want to move to the literature review, they don't have enough time to make the changes to the introduction and then move on to the literature review. Right. So you want to use 1 week for a chapter, and that would give them enough time to finish off a chapter, if that's what they need to do, and then move on to the literature review. And then when they get into it, they have their questions. So that's more or less, in a nutshell, how you would go about setting it up. It's very cost effective because most universities have learning management systems.
Okay.
And linked online resources in their library. Yeah.
So I like what you are doing because you're giving them enough time to do some work and ask questions about it.
Yes.
But I imagine also that students could go back to those forums even though the time had passed. That was dedicated to that specific topic or chapter.
Definitely. And what would happen sometimes, the questions that students ask, other students who are in the program who are open to joining the forums, they would have similar questions. So they don't have to repeat the question. So it's less work in having to, write another answer similar to what was already posted. And we do ask students to read the questions so that they would not repeat questions before they post up their questions.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. Help me clarify the roles of the people who are helping in these research clinics. So you mentioned that you had a research assistant?
Yes, I did.
And so how would you describe your role? Because you would essentially be different from the direct supervisor that the students are working with for their research.
Okay, that's a good question.
Could you clarify the role, how the role work out for the students and for you?
Okay, so the research supervisors for the students, we are aware that they are giving feedback, and sometimes they ask for requested revisions to students' drafts. So in the e-clinics, we have 3 specific aims. We answer questions, just questions students have on their research. We give them guidance as to how to go about doing the requested revisions from their supervisor. And then we help them to find linked resources for articles to support their research, literature review, and so on. So those are actually the 3 specific aims or objectives. And I would be the main facilitator answering the general questions. The research assistant would mostly help with finding the articles because she was trained, on the online databases that we have. And she would go in and post up these links so that students would not lose time. So you don't have one person doing everything because the search for the articles would take some time. And we try to respond within the same day as much as possible. Maybe it could be within the same half an hour the question was asked, depending on how detailed the question is. And we did have the program coordinator sort of promoting the e-clinics, sending out reminders to the students every day, that this clinic is on now, and giving support and encouragement to the students to participate, because the program coordinator would be the one who would be more or less closer to the student than myself. Yeah.
Okay.
But we don't replace the role of the supervisor. We don't. So we tell students, you don't post up your drafts on the forum. What we do is answer your questions and provide links and guidance. And you make your revisions based on the feedback that we've given you, and you resubmit those drafts, modified drafts, to your supervisor. So the supervisor would review. The idea is you want to be able to get the students to the deadline. So we give as much support so that they can arrive at that deadline rather than having to ask for an extension. And then that pushes back everything. Because now the supervisors would have to mark late reports granted the students meet the extended deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And you are sort of caught up in when you think that you have some time to devote to your own research, you are now having to grade the research papers, research thesis, research reports, and it pushes back everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
This really sounds like you're doing good work there in helping students and faculty. How do the students embrace the opportunity to participate in these research clinics?
Oh, they were quite open to it, and we had very good participation. Remember, they were the ones who said they wanted it. Okay. So it was up to them now to make use of it. And indeed, the pilot, there were 32 students in the program at that time. 19 students came on to the platform, and we had at least 10 students asking questions. And we suspect that the other 9 who were on the platform did not ask the questions because the questions that were posted were similar to what they
would have had.
Yeah.
Wow.
When we did the survey afterwards, and we'd asked, how helpful were the clinics? Were you able to move on and so on? I could just read a few of the comments that we got. I was able to select an appropriate data analysis method for my study, which is helping me to move forward with greater confidence that I'm doing what is expected. That's just one example. Mm-hmm. I corrected a misconception. Mm-hmm. The feedback aided me to complete a chapter that was causing some difficulty. Mm-hmm. So overall, the clinics were very helpful for the students, provided.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So in terms of the faculty, I'm interested in finding out what was their response to this strategy, but also you really had to communicate to them that you're not replacing them, your role. You had to be very strategic in actually how you would have had to sell it to them, to these people. So explain that as well as their response to this overall use of the clinic.
Yeah, so in our promotion of the research clinics, we did make it clear that the clinics were not replacing the role of the supervisor, but rather supporting their role. And the idea was to get the students moving forward so that they can meet their deadline. Mm-hmm. We do have a research and innovation pillar in the department that gives support to student research, well, not so much student research, but to help build capacity for research in the department. And when they heard what we were doing, they asked me to do a presentation to the pillar at their pillar meeting, their monthly meeting, and they were all in favor of having the research e-clinics offered to all students in the Masters of Education program. So that it met with much favor from faculty because they saw the support and the value in it. One senior faculty actually remarked that the research clinics gave the faculty a way of thinking about doing things differently. Mm-hmm. And so that was very encouraging. Yeah. Now from the wider university, when I actually applied for the grant, the small grant, because the university offers research awards for faculty to do research, the personnel across there actually commented to me, and she said, students, they do well in their courses. They get A's and B pluses when they have to do their research courses. That's their coursework. And they finish in record time. But when it comes to doing the actual research, they have noticed that there are really frequently a lot of lags. Mm-hmm. Sometimes students don't finish, or they take longer than the stipulated time in the program. So she was remarking that she can see where the research e-clinics could be used across the campus in different disciplines. Mm-hmm. Although I have not piloted it in other disciplines, but that was just some really encouraging feedback. And well, research-wise, when you get a grant, you have to publish what your research was about. And when I started the project, I did put it up on my ResearchGate page, And to my surprise, I was invited to participate in a research methods conference competition for excellence in teaching of research methodology in the UK. And I entered out of a submission of 40 submissions. We had 3 rounds, and we made it all the way through the 3 rounds to the final round. And we were one of the 10 finalists in the competition. And the case studies of those 10 finalists were actually published, and if I could just hold it up, in an anthology.
You may have to hold it higher.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So it's the Innovation in the Teaching of Research Methodology Excellence Awards and Anthology of Case Histories. And we are the second chapter, actually. The Researchy Clinics is the second chapter in the anthology, just behind the first place winner chapter. Wow. So the Researchy Clinics has really gone through the the ringer, if you will, and proven to be really beneficial and valuable for supporting students' research.
Wow, that is indeed commendable.
Thank you.
And so with that, I imagine that there might not be any challenges associated with this strategy?
It's not challenging in the sense that it's very cost effective because you don't have to go out and get any resources, additional resources. Most times your library has online resources and learning management systems. Even if you don't want to use a learning management system, there are other free discussion forum tools out there that you can use if you want to do it on social media, which may not be such a good idea because social media tends to be not research oriented, but more discussion. So I will advise any faculty, if you don't want to go on a large scale, because what I did initially was to pilot it, you can use the researchy clinics with a few students who are having challenges, who are lagging behind. And you implement, you set up your forums, and you do it in a timely manner. You have your online resources, and see how you set a goal for the deadline for the completion. If you need support, you can ask another faculty to help you or get a research assistant to help you, a graduate student, and go with it and see how it works for you, because it certainly worked for me.
So you mentioned some of those things that faculty could do. You mentioned get a graduate student and all of that. But what about a faculty who might not have those resources, but they're interested in using this strategy? So they're still a little bit hesitant because they're like, okay, I didn't get a grant, I don't have graduate students. What would you recommend for them to just start, to at least try this strategy?
You can start with just 1 or 2 students that you're supervising. And the discussion forum is there, I'm sure, on your learning management system. And just set up a timeline, set up the forums, and work with the students just as you would do one-on-one. And explain what the forum is for. Explain to if you're using students who would be supervised by another faculty, if not, or encourage another faculty who is also having challenges with students who are lagging behind, and you could come together and you can share the time, because students may have similar kinds of interests, and share the time and work with the students to meet the deadline. Now the thing is, you're not doing the work for the students, but the fact that students know that support is there, you're not judging them for the lateness, or your focus is to get them moving forward. So you give them as much support as possible, and you set your deadlines and you work with them.
Yeah. Wow, that's actually great advice. So are there any resources that you'd recommend for our viewers to look at?
Sure. I will share those resources with you so that you can upload it to the site. But I have online resources for each chapter and the sections within each chapter that I can upload and share with you, so that when a student asks, how do you write a problem statement, or I'm having problems, you can link directly to that resource. You have a template, you have examples, so that, it would not be something that is difficult. The resources are there. And once you do this, you go through this procedure once, it's there for other faculty to look at. They can see the kinds of questions students are asking, the challenges they're having, and that can actually inform the sections in their research courses that need probably more emphasis, so that students can apply what they learn in the research courses in the classroom, outside the classroom, so it can work for them. Sometimes they're not able to do that very easily, and this is where sometimes the lags come in. That aside, life gets in the way, and students do have issues, personal challenges as well, that prevents them from meeting, working and finishing on time. That's by themselves.
So, and I know you had mentioned the book in which you have that chapter. I think that would be a good resource too, even the title.
Definitely, yes. I'm glad you mentioned. So yes, I'll put the link to the book, the chapter in the book that gives a detailed description of the research e-clinics, the infrastructure, the challenges, and the results. Now, just to mention here, the university also has an early career faculty group, and I'm part of that group. And when they heard what I was doing, they actually invited me to do a presentation. This is after I got published and everything. And I did the presentation, and I'm now in the process of adapting the research e-clinics for the early career faculty to help them with their publications towards tenure track. It's not going to be exactly the same format, because they are writing journal articles. Okay, so I would have to have more experienced facilitators from across the campus. We're exploring that, who have published journal articles and so on in their areas, and they would be the facilitators for the early career faculty to help them meet their publication requirements for tenure track.
Wow. You are doing, very good work, Dr. Ferdinand-James.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you so much for sharing with us. And in the final minute or so of this conversation, could you leave our viewers with an encouragement or a challenge?
Sure. I will encourage you to take up the challenge of actually finding, or if you do have one or two students who are really struggling behind with their research, to take them on board and pilot the research e-clinics to get them moving forward and to get them to graduate. Once they graduate, I'm sure they would be more than happy to share the word about the program and the support that they got, and that would actually be a word of mouth promotion for other students to get into the program, or even consider, if they were considering it, to make a decision to move forward with their research.
Wow, excellent. Well said.
Thank you.
That is so true. And Dr. Ferdinand-James, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us today.
Sure.
And to our viewers, thank you for listening to this conversation. And I would encourage you to share it with others. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode of this virtual summit. See you soon.